drive toward healthier relationships. That's Drive Time Live with Lady K every other Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
Greetings, this is Honey from Harlem 411. Tune in to Harlem 411 Friday nights at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for information on health, education, housing, community events, and more. Harlem 411 serves information to you with the opportunity to call in with your questions. Harlem 411 produced to serve the community's needs. Let us serve you with information. Friday night, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Harlem 411.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
On Sunday, January 19th at 3 p.m., the world-famous Apollo Theater will host a Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration. Hosts Brian Lara and Farai Chadia will discuss the legacy of Dr. King's dream. Featured guest panelists will include Nelson George, Christina Greer, Reverend Peter Hetzel, Dr. Khalil Gibran Muhammad, Dr. Peniel Joseph, Dr. Pedro Noguera, Reverend Paul Brandeis Rauschenbusch, Reverend Donna Shaper, and Jan Willis. Also, performances by Vernon Reed, the Gospel for Teens Choir, and more. That's the Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration, Sunday, January 19th at 3 p.m. at the world-famous Apollo Theater. This event is free and open to the public, but you need tickets. To reserve your ticket, visit www.apollotheater.org.
I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream.
This is WHCR 90.3 on the FM dial, coming to you from the campus of City College in Harlem, USA. The program that you're about to hear, The Communicators, does not reflect the views, attitudes, whims, deeds, or any other proclivities of the management of WHCR, nor that of the administration of City College. However, the program does reflect the research done by the participants in the program who are live and live in color, in studio, by phone interview, and of course there is you, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, the first-class citizens of the world. To God belongs the glory, and what that means is that when we take a step, God takes another one for us. When we do good deeds, God rewards us, the supreme being, the universe, if you don't believe in God and an entity like that, but the universe will reward you tenfold, and if you really get into it, reward you 1,000-fold for doing good deeds that impact on the betterment of people's lives. I'm Brother Leroy, along with Brother Senke, and we're happy to bring you a classroom setting for our program, and this first segment of The Communicators deals with books, a very important book that has knowledge, wisdom, and we're going to get some understanding from the author of that book. The book is timely, and we've had this guest on one time before, and you rang the phones off the hook. The book is Lower Your Taxes Big Time. Lower Your Taxes Big Time, and the author is Sandy Botkin. God bless you. Thank you for joining us on The Communicators.
Well, thank you. It is an honor to be on.
And before we get into our discussion, which is really, the classroom is going to be wide open, let me give you the telephone number for you to call in, 212-650-6903, 212-650-6903, on tips and keys on how to lower your taxes big time. And what that means is that there are these bodies of information out here that the average person doesn't have, and that we feel that we're not comfortable or competent to master, and then we wait on other people to feed this information to us if they know, and therefore help us, quote, do our taxes. But we're talking about lowering taxes, and Sandy Botkin is with us, and with all of that in the way, out of the way, Sandy, please share with us how you came about saying, let me write a book on how the average person and the above average person or the below average person can lower their taxes big time.
Well, you know, it's funny. I used to work at IRS, and when I was an IRS attorney, one of the things that really jumped out at me was that people would get, there were books out there that showed you how to do your taxes, and people had accountants, but nobody really focused on tax planning. That was very unusual to find something like that. And more important than that, there was almost no book. Even today, they're very limited as to what you need to do to bulletproof your records so you can have more deductions and actually reduce your chance of an audit. Nobody showed you how to do that, and as I said, they still don't do it today. So I decided to come out with a book specifically on tax planning, not how to do a tax return. There's no forms in here. You're not going to replace TurboTax or your accountant, but show you what you need to do to bridge that gap with the accountant so you can reduce your taxes by thousands and at the same time increase your deductions and reduce your chance of an audit, which is, I think, very surprising to a lot of people.
Okay, I just need you to hit that again. The why of this book is...
The why is real simple.
Go ahead.
It is to show people how to substantially increase their deductions on money they're already paying and reduce their chance of an audit. In fact, if they ever get audited and they follow my advice, the IRS will get nothing out of them. So more in deductions, less chance of audit.
Okay. Now listen, we're talking to you on January, what's the date? 19th?
19th, you're right.
19th. January 20th. December 31 ended a period of time when some of that planning would have been in mass effect. What can folks what are some areas that they can begin to look at that would enable them to save on taxes by April 14th or extension of times, whatever?
Well, obviously the best thing to do is to do it during the year. What you can do now is great for this year. It's very little, you're a little more limited as to what you can do for last year, but there's still things you can do. First thing you want to look at is to be sure that if you have any IRA set up or pension set up, as long as it's set up by December 31st, you can make a contribution to it this year. And that's true for IRAs, Roth IRAs, any IRA for that matter. And you get a deduction if you do a regular IRA. Even though you put it in this year, you get a deduction for last year. And that is available to you.
Explain that.
Well, the government allows you, if you already have a 401k or an IRA or some pension plan already in existence set up by December 31st, they allow you to make a contribution before you file last year's tax return and get a deduction on last year's tax returns, like an election.
Okay, so give us
nice.
That's the blueprint. Give us an actual thing. A person makes a contribution.
Give you an example. Somebody has an IRA. They didn't make a contribution last year to their IRA. You're allowed to contribute up to $5,500. This year, you decide, okay, I'm going to make a contribution to my IRA because I want to lower my taxes of $5,000. And I'm going to have it apply to last year. As long as you do it before you file your tax return this year, you would get the deduction on last year, 2013 tax return. Even though it's paid this year.
Okay. I'm laughing because that's what the 1% and almost 1% do, right?
Well, actually, I'll tell you what the top 2 or 3% really do, which is something I'll bet nobody's ever told you this. Most people, when I go on the media, when I go on radio, most people ask me what I can do now for last year. The top 1 or 2%, what they do is they've learned a secret, and the secret is called compounding. And compounding is very interesting. If you were to put away that same $5,000 a year in an IRA, at the end of every year, or even at the next year for the previous year, and you do this for your entire working life, let's say you do it for 40 years, versus the same $5,000 a year, but now you do it smarter. You do it at the beginning of each year. Same 40 years, same $5,000, same amount. You will have an extra $60,000 to $100,000 at retirement by doing it at the beginning of the year instead of the end of the year, or even worse, the year after for the previous year.
So when you say at the end of retirement, are we talking about from what age when you cite
Age
this?
65.
Right, but starting from
early 20s.
Okay. Will that individual have an extra $65,000 to $100,000?
Somewhere between $60,000 and $100,000, depending on the rate of return. That's correct.
Based on that compounding.
That's correct.
Okay.
And most people do it absolutely wrong. They wait till the end of the year, or even worse, they do it at the next year for the previous year. They should be doing it at the beginning of each year. Maximize your 401k. Maximize your IRA. If you have another kind of pension plan, max that out. But try to do it towards the beginning of the year and not the end of the year.
Okay, so when you show people that opportunity, this is a classroom. Okay, obviously I haven't done that. So when you
Nobody's done it. Very few people have done it. It's very strange.
Okay, so misery loves company. So I say yay to that. Yay! There's a whole stadium full of people. So here's a person with a pension, with an IRA. In the beginning of the year, they make a contribution. They actually can make contributions throughout the year, but
correct.
When you make it in the beginning of the year, the compounding of interest is going to give them that extra bonus at the time that they retire.
That is correct. It's the same money, same number of years, but just by doing it at the beginning instead of the end, you effectively get an extra year of compounding. So it's worth about $60,000 to $100,000.
Okay, so let's talk in terms of people who are geared to being consumers. Buying this, buying that throughout the year. What you're saying is that in January, instead of me buying 2 new pairs of sneakers that I really don't need because I didn't wear out my last year's gym sneakers, I can invest that money in my IRA, and that will bring me an eventual return greater than the sneakers would have brought me if I had bought a new pair of sneakers that I didn't need.
Well, there's no question you have a better financial return, that's for sure.
Okay.
No question about that. And then, with that extra money, you could probably buy yourself 100 pairs of sneakers.
Right. And by that time, you're so
That's the key. I mean, people really need to understand the power of compounding. In fact, it's very interesting. A little extra time, or even a slight increase in interest rate over a long period of time, is a geometric increase in value. Just slight changes is just huge increases. That's why banks, you ever wonder why banks want to give you not a 15-year loan, but they want to give you a 30-year loan or a 40-year loan? Because the longer the loan, the more money they get geometrically.
From you.
That's correct. And that's why you want to do the reverse. You want the lowest period of loan. You always want to do the reverse of what the banks want you to do.
Okay.
So, I mean, I still don't totally get it. Forgive my ignorance with the compounding. Let's say I have $5,000 in my savings, right?
Correct. You got an extra year. Basically, by doing that, you have an extra year. Let's take 3 years as an example. Okay. If I do it at the end of year 1, okay, I have to the end of year 2, and that money compounds to the end of year 3. So I really have 2 years if I do it at the end of year 1. But if I do it at the beginning of year 1, I have all of year 1 because I did it at the beginning. I have all of year 2, and now I have all of year 3. So effectively, I get an extra year by doing it at the beginning of the year instead of the end of the year.
And this is just with a regular savings account?
No.
This would have to be with an IRA.
It could be a 401k you might have with your company. It could be with an IRA or a Roth IRA or a SEP IRA or whatever pension you have.
So for, let's say as an individual, someone has $5,000 in savings, they should take, if they really want to invest, and it shouldn't be in their savings, it should be in their IRA.
Correct.
Right.
Another advantage of IRAs, by the way, is that not only is the money compound tax-free until you take it out, but certain types of pensions, you're exempt from creditors. Regular pensions, you're subject to anybody can sue you. You put money in qualified plans like a pension or a profit-sharing plan or a 401k. All that money is tax-free if somebody tries to sue you.
Oh, wow.
So that's another advantage. Third advantage is instead of a regular IRA, and this is something that's important, you can set up a Roth IRA. Now, what's a Roth IRA? A Roth IRA was named after, I think it was Senator Roth when he was a senator. And basically, it's money you don't get a deduction for. So it will not reduce your taxes initially. But when the money goes in there, all the money that comes out, all the interest, all the earnings will be tax-free for the rest of your life when you take it out. That's probably a lot better than getting the deduction and then having to pay tax on the money when you take it out.
Right.
So I even recommend the Roth IRA over all the others.
Telephone number 212-650-6903. This is a classroom, and don't be afraid. Just disguise your voice if you don't want us to know how much money you earned.
So, even before we get those callers coming in, with the Roth IRA though, it's still also you incur a penalty though if you touch it. No,
well, the way the Roth IRA works is you have to generally leave it for 5 years. Okay. All right, that's the first rule. The second rule is you want to leave it until you're 59 and a half without any kind of penalty whatsoever. But if you're using it for, again, Roth IRA should be used for certain things. Retirement, and it could also be used for your kids' education. So there are some exceptions where there are no penalties. I wouldn't use it as a normal savings account. If you're going to need the money in 2 years, you're right. You don't want the Roth IRA.
Right.
but you want to be as a savings. Now, another big tip on saving money and taxes, what I bet a lot of people miss. You know, a lot of folks get sent away on business. They go on business trips. Mm-hmm. Maybe they go on a convention or a seminar. What's missed a great deal is not only is the dry cleaning deductible at these conventions and seminars, but the IRS has ruled that as long as your clothing got soiled when you're out of town on business, you can clean them anywhere. So your first dry cleaning bill you incur when you get back to New York is 100% deductible.
Wow. That's beautiful.
And a lot of people miss that. I mean, it's amazing how much. I mean, there's just so much that people miss. I mean, it's really shocking. I was really surprised at how much people are overpaying their taxes due to lack of knowledge.
Sorry. At what point were you surprised?
When I was at IRS, the thing that got me the most, besides seeing what I saw at IRS, was my father. My father was an antique dealer, and he had one of the larger antique dealers in New York, actually. We're from New York. And despite being prepared by a CPA in Long Island, who was actually pretty well known, he had me look at his tax return. I guess he figured he had a son who worked for the IRS. He might as well show his son what's going on. I filed amended tax returns to get back $13,000. This is after the CPA looked at it. I filed amended tax returns to get back $13,000 of things that the CPA missed. And when I started asking around, because I realized there were a lot of people in my dad's boat, which is why I opened up my company called the Tax Reduction Institute to lecture, to show people how they can reduce their taxes and at the same time bulletproof their records from the government so they don't have to worry about an audit.
What kind of proof? What kind of proofing?
Well, there's all kinds of things. Different deductions require different levels of proof. For example, if you're going to entertain, let me give you a little emphasis, a little thing. Entertainment is fully deductible by people, especially those in business who have a small business. And by the way, I want to emphasize one little thing about a small business. I'm going to give you a little inside secret. We have two tax systems in this country. And when I say that, most people think, oh, sure, Sandy, one for rich and one for poor. And I bet a lot of people who are listening think that. That is not true. There's one to make you rich, though, and there's one to make you poor.
Wow.
The one to make you poor are the working stiffs, the one who are employees, because they are taxed on $1, and they don't get a lot of deductions. But if you are self-employed, that's the one to make you rich. Because if you have a business of any type, and you run that business like a business, you can write off part of your house, your spouse, the equivalent of your kids' education and weddings. I'm not exaggerating when I say that, by the way. You can set up a pension plan that I promise you makes any government plan look small by comparison. The benefits of being in business are enormous.
You said writing off part of your child's education. Explain that one.
Okay. Here's something that's interesting. If someone would ask me, or if you ask your accountant, can you deduct your kid's college education? The answer is no. Can you deduct a car you buy your kid for college? No. How about room and board? No. How about if your daughter's wedding and money you contribute to her wedding? Not deductible. Now that's what 99% of the population does. But there's an old saying in Washington, D.C., where I live, and that is, where there's a will, there's a lawyer. And what you do is instead of doing all those things, you hire your kids in your business. By wages you pay an assistant in business are deductible. Now here's my point. If your kids use that money that you're paying them from working in your business to pay for their own college, their own wedding, their own room and board, their own video games, their own whatever. Aren't you, in essence, getting a deduction for those things?
Technically,
Same money.
yeah.
It's the same money. I hired my daughter majored in digital design, which is sort of like web design with some motion. At the end of 2 years, she was able to do some internships, so she had some good skills. So I needed a new website, and I priced out what a brand new website would be with all the bells and whistles, which is pretty expensive, actually. So I asked my daughter, Allie, I said, can you do my website with these bells and whistles? And she said, sure. I was able to pay her something less than what the original web firm quoted me. The amount I was able to deduct by paying her equaled about 2 years of tuition plus 2 years of room and board plus books. I saved tens of thousands of dollars hiring my daughter. Tens of thousands. Now, there may be a lot of listeners who are listening to the show and saying, wait a minute, I don't have a business. Well, first of all, I strongly recommend you get one and work it like a business, but even because you might make enough money to not have to work for that job anymore. But more important than that, let's assume you don't have a business. Here's a little tip for you. Hire your kids to do some chores around the house. Make their bed. Clean their room. Do the various things you want your kids to do. Now, that's not deductible if you hire them personally, but the money is earned income, which means that they can take the money that you pay them, and they can take that money and put it into a Roth IRA so that all the money comes out for the rest of their life tax-free at the retirement.
Only thing, Sandy, is, young kids, you're telling them that, and once you get them that money, it's almost a fight to get them to invest it, right?
And then there's a second approach. It's called the beat the living crud approach. And that one is if they touch you tell them that you touch this money before a certain period of time, we'll be utilizing the beat the living crud approach.
And just moving right along, you mentioned the IRAs, the Roth Keos at this time. What other things can be done at this time that would save the taxpayers?
Well, what's interesting, as I said, is if you have a business, having a business is really a secret behind everything. And let's assume that business generates a loss. And many times in the first year, it does. That loss can be used against any form of income you have. Interest, dividends, wages, rents, pensions, anything. So let's take an example. Let's say, you're making, I don't know what you're making in the radio, let's say $50,000 in salary. And you have a little side business that generates a $10,000 loss. You only pay taxes on $40,000, the net. And if that business loss exceeds your income for the year, here's where you can help yourself. You can carry back all business losses 2 years and offset the income that you earned over the last 2 years in both the federal and state tax returns. You actually get a check back. So you can get back all the taxes you paid to the federal and state government for the last 2 years of taxes. Or you can carry it forward, all business losses, up to 20 years and offset the next 20 years of earnings. So again, having a business really can pay off. But there are some things you can still do. For example, charity. You're allowed to take, when you contribute to your church, or you contribute to the Salvation Army, or you contribute to one of these charities, they're deductible. But the catch is, in order to get a deduction these days, you got to show that you actually made the payment. No longer will $20 dropped into the Salvation Army kettle be deductible. So you're going to have to pay by check. Show that you actually made the payment, and you must get an acknowledgement from the charity, especially if if you paid over $250 or more. Let's say to your local church that you've contributed that, you have to get an acknowledgement from the church saying you made this contribution. And if you don't have it, get it now. Get it before you file your tax return. Because if you get audited, you can't suddenly ask the church, okay, I didn't. I'll get it from then. It's too late at that point. You want to get it before you file your tax return.
Now, Sandy, some of our listeners are listening saying, yeah, this all sounds great, but they're like, your dad was. They have someone doing maybe their taxes, and they don't know how to do these things, etc. Will those who have your book be able to do this themselves? Can you talk a little about that?
Lower Your Taxes Big Time basically Lower Your Taxes Big Time is a very simple book, very easy to understand. One of the things when I wrote it, my kids at that time were in junior high school, maybe beginning of high school. I had them read it to make sure they understood it. And they are not so brilliant, believe me. So these are young teenage kids. So if I figured if they could understand it, then the average person can understand it. My mind is like an 8th grade mind. Although I have this tax knowledge, I really don't think, more than, I think more like an 8th grader than anybody else. So I write very simply. and I explain it, and I give notes, and I show you how to do it. But, you know, the important point is this. People shouldn't be doing their own tax return. They really shouldn't. They should be using a professional. In fact, there's a little study done by IRS where people who do their own tax returns, very quiet study, have double the error rate of people who use a professional. And if, not only is it double the error rate, but that also increases your chance of audits because IRS knows there's double the error rate. I mean, IRS is not stupid. And even worse, if you get into a problem, who represents you? The box? I mean, they don't tell you this on TurboTax and Intuit and Microsoft Money and all this other stuff, but you know, you really should be using an accountant, particularly if you have any complexity, if you own some real estate, if you have a business, or any of those things, you should be using an accountant. Accountants are also good for financial statements. So you know where you're standing. Where, you know, people need to know where they are. It's hard to get where you want to be in life if you don't know where you are.
Now, Sandy, you said something that's very interesting. Well, for one, I'm not sure if you're aware right now, because, of course, the time of year it is, all of these tax companies, they're running an ad, and they're talking about that fact you just cited, that people, there's over $1 billion lost per year by people who do their own taxes, that they miss out and they lose things.
I think it's more than that.
Wow.
I think it's substantially more than that. No, there's no question. I think people even use accountants are way overpaying their taxes due to lack of knowledge. But people who don't even use an accountant, it's even worse.
So that's my point. Is it a tax preparer of any type, or are you specifically saying a tax preparer who's also an accountant? Because
I'm specifically saying I would recommend one of 4 types of preparers. I would recommend either a CPA or a tax attorney who does returns, or a former IRS attorney who does returns, or someone called an enrolled agent. That's a person who takes a tough exam with the IRS. Any of those 4. I wouldn't use your insurance rep. I wouldn't use your brother-in-law who has no backing whatsoever or background. I would use one of those 4. Then you want somebody who's honest and aggressive. You know, I met somebody who said, I'm the best accountant in the world. And I asked him, well, what do you mean by that? He goes, well, my accountant gives me $5,000 more every year in charity than I ever pay for. And IRS finds out about those people, and they audit every single person that person prepared.
And you know, it's so funny because that is how that happens. I know of people, it's the same example you just talked about. They're quote-unquote bragging or talking about how much they got back through this person with some sort of means or technique, which is borderline at tops. And once one person gets busted, they go through the records of everybody, and then they audit every last person who came through there.
You're absolutely right about that. To judge an accountant by how much he gets back for you, I think it's a really dumb move. But even worse is when you're at an audit, and then I had a guy who said, "Oh, I have the best accountant in the world." I said, "Well, again, why do you feel that way?" "Oh, I got audited, and I actually got back money." So my response to him was, "You should have been audited every year." If I ever have an accountant where I get back lots of money as a result of an IRS audit, I'd fire that accountant in a heartbeat. And people look at things differently. You know, the rich have a very different way of looking at things, and I think people can get rich, but they got to think like the rich. You know, it's an old saying my father used to say to me, and it's true. And it was true 40 years ago, and it's true now. If you want to fly like an eagle, you don't hang around with turkeys.
Hold on while we have a eagle in coming. God bless you. Thank you for your call. You're in the air.
I'd like to ask a question. Is there dealing with the issue of the taxes done over the computer, run into problems of being flagged by the editors of the IRS for fraud and many other problems?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Taxes on the computer? I mean, I'm not sure I understand what you're asking me.
Well, in many cases, a lot of people have now tried to file the IRS
electronically
to get money, but you have to have a number. But now there's an issue of problems of things not done right, or errors made, or the computer or whatever, and the issue that you can wind up being audited.
No, I understand what you're saying. You know, it's the old saying, garbage in equals garbage out, and that's true whether it's a computer or it's a paper return or whatever. I mean, but generally, doing it electronically actually reduces your chance of audit for a couple of reasons. First of all, one of the biggest chances of an audit, if you asked me 15 years ago what the number 1 or 2 audit risks or audit red flags was failing to sign tax returns and failing to have the right Social Security numbers on the returns. When you file electronically, all that stuff is checked. The numbers are checked to make sure there's no math errors. And that was also a huge audit risk, an audit red flag. So filing electronically actually reduces your chance of audit. It also proves that IRS got your tax return because you actually get electronic receipts. And when you get those receipts, IRS can't say they didn't get it. And if you have that receipt, they usually waive penalties. So I strongly recommend filing electronically. But you're raising another very important issue that I want to mention. There is a huge problem on identity theft where thieves are getting your Social Security number, they get your address, and what they're doing is not only they used to just establish credit in people's names, but now they're doing something worse. They actually file phony tax returns to get back refunds. And then all of a sudden, when you file your tax return, all of a sudden, any refund you would have gotten, you figure it's not there because somebody already filed. Now, there's a way to get around that. IRS has a whole division to deal with that, but that's a huge problem now. And one of the things that you want to avoid, and I always talk about avoiding problems, is you want to, number one, make sure nobody gets your Social Security number. You hide that, you shred documents with Social Security number on it. I mean, you just make sure nobody gets a hold of that thing. And number two, it's always pay to file early. The earlier you file, the less of a chance that somebody else will file to try and, with identity theft, to get back money from you.
Our guest online is Sandy Bodkin. He's with us for a few more minutes. You're listening to
WHCR 90.3 FM, the Voice of Harlem.
And the Voice of Harlem is represented by Brother
Sinkay and Brother Leroy, and as well as a host of other brothers and sisters who represent the communicated team.
And, of course, the audience, you are welcome to call in, 212-650-6903, 212-650-6903. So we're in that period of time when various tax companies are opening up storefronts that they held just in check for a whole year. You didn't see anybody moving around in them outside of the tax period. Now, January, the stores begin to open up, and you say, well, they've been paying rent on that space all year. Talk about that part of the business that makes a business off of people's lack of knowledge and how they can maximize their deductions, knowledge of their deductions during this time of year. They're in this part of the year. What are some of the things that they need to know that can save them money?
Well, first of all, you need to get the knowledge. That's the first thing you need to get. Most accountants are not going to give you the information. They're so busy doing tax returns that they don't have the tax planning capability. They don't sit there and, like me, who just study these things and figure out, what you need to do to plan to reduce your taxes. But you got to have that knowledge, because if you don't have the right knowledge and if you don't have the right documentation, there's only so much your accountant can do for you. It's got to be a partnership deal. And that is why I recommend, that's why I wrote my books. And that's why I wrote Lower Your Taxes Big Time, which is available on any bookstore or Amazon. And in addition to Lower Your Taxes Big Time, I have another book that it's garnering some terrific reviews called Achieve Financial Freedom Big Time. And that deals with all kinds of things, from estate planning to asset protection to insurance to just all kinds of stuff. So the key is to get the knowledge. You don't know what you don't know, and that's just the way it is.
Hold on. God bless you, on the air with Sandy Bodkin.
Okay, thank you. My name is Will. I'm a first-time caller. I was wondering, can you talk about the amended tax form? What does that mean? Can you go back in previous years and amend your tax return?
That's a great question. The answer is you can go back to what they call 3 open tax years. So if you haven't filed your 2013 return, you can go back to through 2012, 2011, 2010. If you filed your 2013 return, then you can go to 2013, 2012, and 2011. So essentially, it's three open tax years. And if I say something or you see something in my book that you realize you should have taken that you didn't, you can file amended returns. And one of those things, I'll give you one thing that's changed this year, actually. If you were to use a qualified truck, a truck is a vehicle that has a truck chassis and a gross vehicle weight of over 6,000 pounds. It's a carrying weight, and you can find that in the door jamb of the driver's side. You just open up the door, there's a little plate there, tells you what the gross vehicle weight is, and it has a 6-foot cargo area or more. You can write off 100% of the business use of that truck, 100%.
Wow.
And if you buy yourself a new SUV last year, you can write off $25,000 of the business use of the SUV, and then another 50% of what's left over. We call that bonus depreciation. That applies to any new SUV you purchased last year, and that applies to any new truck you used in business last year. This year, those bonus depreciations are gone, so you don't get that for this year if you bought it this year.
Can I ask you one other question? Is there a statute of limitation on your tax filing, not the filing, on your tax filing?
Good question, too. Boy, these are good questions. The answer is yes, there is, if you file a tax return. If you file a tax return, generally there's a couple rules. The government can only go back 3 open tax years the same way you can go back, unless they can prove fraud. If they can show fraud and prove that, there's no limitation. They can go back forever.
Wow.
Also, if you don't file a tax return, anyone who's listening on this and who's not filed a return, the IRS can go back forever as long as you haven't filed that return. You are always on the hook.
As long as you, so you would recommend that people always file, even if they don't have the information on.
I would recommend they always file. That's correct. At some point, get the information. Well, you got to get the information before you can file. But once you get that information, I would almost always recommend filing, even if you don't need to. And if you generally can make under a certain amount, you don't always need to file. I would file anyway because that stops the statute of limits and limits it to 3 years.
Thank you, Sandy.
Okay.
Not a problem.
Give your website.
My website, I have 2 websites. I have a special website, which is a site called TaxBot, TaxBot.com, that has all kinds of information on smartphone applications, how to keep track of your records for using a smartphone, particularly if you have a small business. And that's called TaxBot.com. If you go on there, they'll ask you for a code. If you type in the code SAVE50, S-A-V-E 50, you will get it at half price. The other website is TaxReductionInstitute.com, and that one has all kinds of information on my book, on audios and a lot of other various stuff. So there's TaxReductionInstitute.com, and then there's TaxBot.com. TaxBot is the one for the smartphones.
So Sandy, basically, and one of the things I want to get sure that I'm understanding that you recommend is that if I buy the book, it's good the information for me to have, but it arms me to challenge my preparer to use those things, but not for me to actually go in and do it myself, even though, as you said, it's written basically an 8th grader can understand it.
Well, I would say it's a combination. Some of the things you can do yourself, like we talk about how to write off all the entertainment, how to write off your movies, your plays, your golf. That you can do yourself. You got to know that to be able to do that, obviously. You're going to be entertaining clients, entertaining people. But a lot of it is to bridge the gap between you and your accountant. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
My goal is self-empowerment. I don't think anybody's going to take care of us, to be honest with you. If you're not self-empowered, if you don't have the knowledge, there isn't anyone that's going to take care of you.
If you don't go after it, it's not necessarily going to come to you, but if you do go after it, it definitely is going to come to you, the knowledge.
That is exactly right.
There's a certain principle in that, in terms of dynamic, that as you pursue something of good, and you can pursue something of bad, but as you pursue something, the doors open up for more knowledge to come through to you.
Many times over, too.
Now, you're affirming that. Talk about your experience in that.
Well, there's no question in my mind. I've seen this from a tax perspective, I've seen this from a business perspective, and I've seen this from a personal perspective. What you give out comes back to you. You develop knowledge. You want to reduce your taxes. You will save thousands, and based on the principle of compounding, it will pay off enormously. Same thing is true with good deeds in many cases. I was looking at a biography of Ben Franklin. A lot of people don't realize what a good guy he was. He used to endow almost any church or synagogue with money, regardless of what he believed in, because he believed all of these things were doing good for people. And Ben Franklin became internationally renowned. He had all these great creative ideas. And I would like to think, and I do think, that a lot of the reason he is so famous is because of all the good deeds he did in his life. And I think the same thing is true now. What you give out will come back to you. And usually it comes back like the principle of compounding, many times over.
It's interesting what you say about Ben Franklin. There are others who were his compatriots coming along the same time. They're famous also, but there are negatives attached to many of them, whereas when you talk about Ben Franklin, there are very little negatives that are attached to his name. Telephone number 212-650-6903. We only have a few more minutes with Sandy Botkin on this interview. This is our second interview with him. It's been a period of time. since we interviewed him before regarding lowering your taxes as it relates to your child's education. And that's something that you would take advantage of before December 31. The situation of tax preparers who gain the confidence of the tax, the person coming to them, and actually stealing their money, stealing their return. What's the alternatives that a person has whose tax preparer has gotten and gotten them to sign off on something that they didn't know, and the tax monies go directly to the tax preparer?
Well, first of all, usually with a tax return, the money comes back to the client. You should always make sure that the address on the return, any request for refund, goes to you directly. It should never, ever go to the tax preparer. Now, I know there are some people that are doing that because they get a faster refund, but you want to absolutely avoid that situation. You know, that's just so important that you try and do that. Generally, there are very few. I mean, I have seen cases where preparers are doing things they shouldn't do, like stealing money and doing things like that and violating their trust, and most of those people end up in jail. I have no idea why they do that, because they almost all go to jail when that happens. Very easy to find, very easy to discover. But it's really not that common. You read about it because it gets great media. It's very good in the media. Everybody looks at this and gets shocked. But to be honest with you, a very, very small percentage of tax preparers do anything like that. Because, as I said, it's so easy to discover, and they almost all go to jail.
Yeah. And when that happens, what is the recourse of the victim?
Well, if the victim didn't get the money, he has a couple of recourses. He can notify the IRS that it wasn't sent to him. He didn't get the money, and try and get a new check issued. The other option is to put a claim in with the victim's estate. I mean, there's a variety of options.
Right. Okay. I mean, Sandy, how easy is it? Let's say I get Brother Leroy's tax return. I'm over his house. He came in. I came in with him. I saw, from the envelope or the way it is, I knew it was his tax return. I slip it in my pocket and I go out. It has his name on it. How easy is it to cash one of those? I mean,
well, you won't be cashing a tax return. Well, I'll tell you what the real problem is. What the real problem is if you open up the return, get all his information, and then file a claim for refund, an amended return or a claim for refund from the government. That's the real problem. Then you got issues dealing with the IRS. They're going to want to know what the problem is and how come you got this claim for refund, and are you entitled to it? And if you didn't do it, then who did it? And then you got to try and then it's a pain. And it's a real pain. And there's a lot of identity theft going on in this world. Believe me, it's getting worse. Look what's going on in Target with 110 million people's credit card became somebody got a hold of it.
But Sandy, in this case, I have Brother Leroy's check right there. I mean, why would I need to? I mean, a common thief, it would seem. I got the check right there. I just want to go.
Sign it, or you're cashing it? You're using a forged signature.
Right. I want to use a forged signature.
Well, he can just go to the IRS, or he can actually go to the bank that cashed it and said, "This was not my signature, and you owe me the money."
Okay. Hold on. We take this last call. Thank you for your call. You're on the air with Sandy Botkin. Lower your taxes big time.
Okay. Another question. Will the IRS start eliminating giving checks out and go strictly direct deposit?
That's a really good question. In many cases, you can get that right now. That is available really direct deposit right now. I have a VA check, for example, I get every single month, and that goes right into my bank account. And the same thing is true in many cases from tax if you want it to go directly into your account. You can gear it. It's not as common as I think it will be. But yes, it's going to be very, very common, I think, in the near future. Same thing is true with cars. I was just reading an article that you're going to see, I think, in your lifetime, the cars that drive themselves that you won't have to drive.
Right.
Yeah.
Sandy, one other thing in terms of somebody stealing your money, a tax preparer taking your money by way of your signature, you sign something, and the tax return goes to them. Is that a district attorney's situation, or is that a IRS situation where you go to them and they pursue the individual?
That's a good question. I'm not sure. I would do both. I would contact both and see what happens. Certainly the IRS, for sure.
Right.
I would then contact the district attorney, because that basically is embezzlement, and that was probably a joint crime. It's probably a federal and state crime.
Okay.
So I'm saying you don't see that many accountants doing this because there's so many penalties involved, and it's so easy to discover. For an accountant to do that is just too stupid for words.
Well, it's happening. It's happening. It's happening.
I'm sorry to hear that.
One last question, Brother Sinkade.
No, I just was gonna say this.
Excuse me. Wait a minute. I didn't give Sandy your title. One more question, millionaire.
I wish. I mean, one thing, Sandy, I was just going to alert you to that I know firsthand is that some of these preparers, because they prepare your returns, they have insight. They come to you with business deals or other things that's probably unethical because of, they're
allowed to come to you with business deals. They're allowed. They are.
Okay.
The catch is they got to disclose any conflict if they're not making money.
Right.
Or if they're making a commission or whatever, they have to make that disclosure. And if they don't do that, then they could be in violation of not only state securities requirements, but federal security requirements. They're allowed to offer you any deal they want, as long as it's fully disclosed and it's legal.
Okay.
Okay, I did a machete on a call that just came in. Caller, please call back real quick so I can take your call for Sandy Bodkin. I just chopped it up real bad. And we have another guest who's on right after Sandy Bodkin, and let's hope that this is the caller who I messed up on. Thank you for your call.
Yes, Brother Leroy, you chopped me up.
Okay,
real
all right,
good.
All right, okay, go ahead. Your question.
Okay, yes, Mr. Bodkin, you've mentioned about VA checks. So a person who has a VA disability, is that and I was told it was tax-free, and could you speak on that, whether or not a VA disability from the military is tax-free?
Correct. It depends on whether it's a disability check or just like a retirement check. If it's normal retirement from the military, that is taxable. If it's disability, like a VA disability, that is completely tax-free. You pay no tax on that money.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I've been getting that for a long time in my life, and it's since I got the Army, and it's completely tax-free.
And so a person gets a check from the VA, retirement, and in disability. Is that the way?
Well,
it works?
let's say they're an employee of the VA and they're getting a retirement check, that's taxable.
Oh, okay.
If it's a disability check, which is what most people get from the VA, then yes, it's tax-free. Tax-free federal and tax-free state.
Hold on a second. You're on the air. Thank you for your call.
Hi. I'd like to know if Social Security checks are taxable and are they able to be garnished?
That's a really good question. Here's your answer. Generally, with Social Security, it depends on how much you're making in Social Security and how much you're making in we call other income.
What?
Let me explain what that is. The way Social Security works is that part of it could be taxable. The maximum amount that's taxable would be 15%. I'm sorry, the maximum amount that is tax-free is 15%. The maximum amount that is taxable would be 85% of what you receive in Social Security. Now, it gets a little more complicated. The government, there's no such thing as tax simplification in this world. They don't know how to do anything simply. If you make under 32, if you're married, if you're making under $32,000, or if you're single and making under $25,000, that includes Social Security. Social Security and any other income you make, then it's completely tax-free. If you're making between $32,000 and $44,000, married, filing jointly, that's taxable income, or single, making between $25,000 and $34,000, then 50% of your Social Security is taxable. And if you make over $44,000 married or over $34,000 single, net taxable income, 85% of your Social Security is taxable.
Okay.
You got to figure out what tax bracket you're in, and generally, if you're making over $44,000 married or over $34,000 single, that includes the Social Security you're receiving, then you'll pay tax on 85% of it.
Wow.
Okay, and hopefully, if that's not clear to the caller, call back.
I have a whole chart on this actually. So if the caller were to tell me what their taxable income is, including Social Security, I can tell them how much of that is taxable. Generally, the rule is if you make over $44,000, 85% of that is taxable as Social Security. If you make under $32,000 married, only 0 of it is taxable.
Wait.
And make in between, then up to 50% of Security is taxable.
You're going to hit that one again for me. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, and good morning. Happy New Year.
And the same to you. Thank you.
Okay, two things. Could he spell his last name and also list both his website and the books that he was referring to?
Sure. My last name is Botkin. B as in brother, O as in Oscar, T as in Thomas, Kin as in next of kin. Botkin. And the two websites, one deals with a software application that I developed for iPhone and Droid called TaxBot, TaxBot.com. And the second website, which is where a lot of my other information is Tax Reduction Institute. But the hardest part is just spelling all those words right. TaxReductionInstitute.com. And my two books, if I'm going too quickly, I tend to be an ex-New Yorker, so I can go at 60 miles an hour with a 120-mile-an-hour breeze. My two books are Lower Your Taxes Big Time, and the other book is called Achieve Financial Freedom Big Time, both of which by Sandy Botkin, B-O-T-K-I-N. Hopefully you got that one.
All right, caller.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Telephone number 212-650-6903, 212-650-6903. Sandy Botkin is our guest. Lower your taxes
they
big
love
time.
Sandy today.
They loved him.
You picked the right time to bring Sandy back on.
Some people will say Leroy picked the wrong time. I should have had him on December 25th.
I spent it already.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm real popular toward the end of December and the beginning of January. I don't go to parties at those periods of time.
Hold on, Sandy. God bless you. Thank you for your call. You're on the air.
Yes, Mr. Botkin, how about Social Security disability and you receiving VA 100% disability from injuries incurred in the U.S. Army?
Good question. VA is 100%. VA disability is 100% tax-free. You do not pay tax on VA. Social Security disability, I'm not 100% sure. I think it is taxable, but I'm not 100% sure on that because I haven't received it. I never had a client having that. I can always look that up and post it on my website, post the answer to that.
Okay.
In fact, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little research on that. If you go on Facebook.com/Sandy Botkin, I have all kinds of blogs that I put on there, Facebook.com/SANDY Botkin. I'm going to do a little research on Social Security disability, and I'll publish the answer.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sure.
And telephone number 212-650-6903. I wasn't paying that close attention while you were answering that question regarding Social Security. Part of her question was garnishing the Social Security check.
Who would garnish it? Who would take that Social Security check?
Well, if there's a creditor, whom a person owes, then they can garnish this and that and the other. The question is, can they garnish Social Security checks?
I think they can.
Okay.
I think they can.
The government can, and
for sure,
the government can. And then it's up to a certain amount that they would have in their bank account. There is that particular stipulation. But as long as the person can prove that their monies is from the Social Security check, then that amount of money, there's a certain amount of money that's free from garnishing, but the government can and will take from the Social Security checks.
There's no question that is the case if you owe past tax due. There's no question. By the way, that's one of the big advantages of having a nice pension plan like a SEP or a 401k or one of these qualified plans, because that money is generally exempt from almost all creditors except the government.
Okay.
Government makes sure. The old saying, he who has the gold makes the rule, the old golden rule.
All right, listen, we have a caller on the line.
Hi, I'm calling back again. I was listening to a program, and this guy was on disability, and he spent 70% of his income on rent. And on rent. And he was taking 32 medications, and he mentioned the fact that you could have your Social Security, and I assumed because he had a certain illness that he was disabled. And he said he was trying to avoid getting his check garnished, and it was disability. And my question is that I started out with disability, And then when you reach 65 or whatever, it turns into regular Social Security. And what protection do you have? Because it's fixed income.
You really don't have a lot of protection. That's the problem.
But that was, okay, well, I look at it as that was my money that they took away from me years ago.
Sure.
And put it aside for me.
That's correct, but that's true. That's true of any kind of liability. Money that you've saved personally. If somebody sues you for whatever reason, they can go after you personally, even though you put that money away, no matter what.
Yeah, that I understand, but just Social Security disability.
As I say, I don't know. I really don't know how protected that is from liability.
Yeah, they need to explore that.
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Yeah, that needs to be, and that's another thing, Brother Leroy. We need to talk.
Okay.
I'm a tax lawyer. I can tell you about the tax act.
Right. So everything you said is good. And one thing, the 401k.
Yeah.
Okay, my nephew just called me and asked me, should he get a 401k? The company puts in so much and they take so much from him.
Yes.
And he's in the state of California.
Yes.
Is that a good?
You know, I'm going to tell you something shocking. Over 50% of the people who have 401ks where the company matches their contribution don't make any contribution.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's free money.
Ooh, well, I told him he needs to check it out, so I'm going to refer him to you.
You can. I don't take clients, so that's fine. You just tell him to maximize his 401k if he has to beg, borrow, or steal, particularly if the company is matching their contribution.
Exactly.
Because that's free money.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Very good show.
All right.
Leroy, we have to talk.
Sandy, I don't get that either, why people do not. It's like Sandy said, that's really free money. I don't understand that.
Well, you know, a lot of young folks, as they get older, they say you get older, you get wiser. I'm not so sure that's true. But a lot of young folks, they don't realize that, 60s come very quickly. You're in your 20s, you figure, oh, man, I got this whole life. I'm invulnerable. I can do anything I want. And you really don't realize how fast retirement comes at you.
And Sandy Botkin, let me see now. The Facebook, okay, the research that you're doing, you'll put on your Facebook page.
I'll put it on my Facebook page under facebook.com/Sandy Botkin on the taxability of Social Security.
Okay, and
disability.
And one last thing in terms of people getting their taxes prepared. There's two things. People getting their taxes prepared right now, and they opt for a quick return, but if they're doing it electronically, they're going to get a return anyway. They're giving away money.
You actually get it faster when you do it electronically. If you're getting a refund and you file electronically, you will get a faster refund than if you do it by paper or any other way.
Okay, what I'm saying is the scheme that goes on in lower income areas is that we can give you a check right now.
Yeah. Correct, I know that.
Yeah.
I know that, and you know what? There's usually a very hefty charge for doing that. I was talking to someone who works at H&R Block, and they charge like 10% or more of interest for giving you your check now and waiting to get the money from the government and like financing your check, which is horrible.
Sandy, it's more than 10%.
Low-income people to the tune of just usurious rates, and it's predatory, in my opinion.
The thing is that when they go to a tax preparing business, it's going to be done electronically anyway, and they're going to receive their tax return in a couple of weeks or 3 weeks. There's going to be a return.
Correct.
So you don't have to pay them to give you your money and take money away from you at the same time.
Absolutely. I think to do that, or even worse, to borrow on the refund before you can get it, when it's going to be within a week or two or three at most, is ridiculous, especially to pay 10 or 15% interest on that money. That's ridiculous.
See, Sandy and Brother Leroy, that's because y'all not going to that party they're going to. That's why y'all don't get it. You know?
Some truth to that.
Sandy, we're going to have you back up in here.
Anytime. Let's do it before they do their tax return, so they make sure we do it right.
All right. And thank you very much, and may God continue to bless you and your family.
Same to you, and I hope you make your life less taxing.
Yes, sir. All right. Bye now. And this is WHCR 90.3 on the FM dial. And, of course, you only hear this kind of innovative talk and chat.
You're listening to WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
The Stanley Mirsky MD Educational Unit of the Mount Sinai Diabetes Center presents free diabetes education classes. Learn how to manage your diabetes and enjoy a better quality of life. Invite your friends and family to help you reach your goals. Prevent, control, thrive. Classes are Monday evenings at 6 p.m. and Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. All classes are held at the CAM building, located at 17 East 102nd Street, between Madison and 5th Avenue. Classes are free, but you must register. To register, call 212-241-3422, option number 4.
Divas Beauty Salon has moved. Divas Beauty Salon, a team of professional Dominican hairstylists with more than 10 years of experience in Harlem, has moved to the Bronx. Recently renovated for your convenience and better service, the salon offers a full range of services, including wash and sets, wash and blow dry, relaxers with deep conditioning, touch-ups, semi and permanent color, haircuts, and more. Divas Beauty Salon, located at 670 East 161st Street between Cotwell and Trinity Avenues in the Bronx. Open 7 days a week for your convenience, Monday through Saturday 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Sundays 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. For more information, call 718-292-0055. That's 718-292-0055. Remember, at Divas Beauty Salon, we value your time. We're not here to waste it.
Celebrate the life and works of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on Monday, January the 20th at 10 a.m. at the Convent Avenue Baptist Church. This celebration will feature the Martin Luther King Reunion Choir, Mr. Lawrence Craig, and the Harlem Marine Corps Cadets. The guest speaker will be Reverend Perry Simmons of the Abyssinian Baptist Church in Newark, New Jersey. There will also be a special performance by Brandon J. Durden, who portrays Dr. King in the Broadway play All the Way. Enjoy a day of faith, family, and friendship as we honor Dr. King's legacy. That's Monday, January the 20th at 10 a.m. at the Convent Avenue Baptist Church. Convent Avenue Baptist Church is located at 145th Street and Convent Avenue. This Martin Luther King Day celebration is sponsored by the Baptist Ministers Conference.
Ladies and gentlemen, be sure you make these celebrations. You will find information, you will find inspiration, you will find enjoyment, and you will find great company. It's an ideal situation to bring your youngsters to these Martin Luther King celebrations tomorrow. Tonight, tomorrow, you have nothing but some great preaching and some great camaraderie, especially to my brothers and sisters who don't believe in God no more. They say I'm a socialist, I'm a communist, and all this other kind of stuff. Look, if you, my brother and sister, you came out of a heritage of spirituality. So forget about the religion tag. Go to the church, get some good singing under your belt, and be revived. Come on out, be a communist or socialist or black nationalist after. On the line is our good doctor. She gave some information a couple of weeks ago on the flu, and people began to implement doing some sage tea, etc. She's black with us, Sister Dr. Courtney Witherspoon. God bless you, my sister.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me back on.
Well, I mean, the more people are sick, the more we got to have you up on in here. So what are some things that you are observing? And let me run this by you. I was talking to an associate of mine yesterday, and he was talking about older people coming down with this flu that gets a hold of people, and it doesn't matter whether you took the flu shot or not, he said to me. I'm listening, and I'm saying, well, if they took the flu shot, they will open up the door for something to flu in. But I don't know. I'm Brother Leroy, don't take no flu shot. Talk to us. You laughing? Or is that the chair creaking?
No, that was me. You have a way with words, though.
All right, go ahead. Your response to Brother Leroy's ignorance of the necessity of taking a flu shot at Duane Reade, CVS. They got so many pharmacies in the black community. It's as though every block is a drug addict. But go ahead.
Well, I'm speaking to everyone, people who want to take the flu shot and people who don't. Unfortunately, I see people who've taken the flu shot and actually become very ill. In fact, there's a couple of hospitals where nurses are documenting side effects that the nurses are getting from the flu shot, which is more and more seems to be mandatory in some places. Some people seem to benefit. Everyone, I just believe in a democracy where everyone should be able to make their own decisions. So what I want to talk about today is what you can do for the flu. And, of course, science is just catching up. So a little more on what you can do. And some of you out there who are already on top of things or learn things from your parents, you probably know some of these things. I'm just going to fill in some details. So I'm going to talk about just 3 herbs. One is elderberry. Black elderberry has been around and been used by indigenous people for thousands of years. It comes from the Sambucus nigra bush, and that's why when you go to the health store, you'll find syrups called Sambuco, which is a name taken obviously from the Sambucus nigra, using the blackberry extract. Now, this has been used for thousands of years, and so now medicine scientists are finally getting on the bandwagon. They've actually done studies, and it only verifies what your grandmother knew, what great-grandparents knew forever. Now, this is very interesting because medical science talks about the need of the flu shot toward the H1N1, which is actually called influenza A virus, and the milder one is influenza B. They can both lay you out. In the elderberry, there's been several elderberry studies recently. One was from a university in Germany. That was just done 2 years ago. And what they showed, they gave 60 people the liquid extract of black elderberry. And they, of course, had a control group who took pharmaceutical medications. And what they found was the 60 people who took the liquid extract of black elderberry were over all the symptoms within 2 to 3 days. People who took the participants who took the medications were still laid up 5 to 7 days later. They saw that it definitely killed the influenza A or the H1N1. It inhibited influenza B virus by 70 to 99%. So overall, people got better within 2 days, 2 to 3 days, versus 7 to 10 days, just by taking the extract of elderberry. They also have studies. I looked at another study where in vitro elderberry inhibited the H1N1. Again, that's the influenza A virus. And what scientists think is now elderberry is loaded with minerals, but particularly it has a lot of vitamin C, and it has high levels of flavonoids. What are flavonoids? Flavonoids are the compounds in many fruits and vegetables that act as antioxidants in the body. Elderberry has an extremely high antioxidant level. As you read papers or if you're on the internet, you will come across a word called ORAC, and that's your oxygen radical absorption capacity. All that is, ORAC is a way of determining how high or low a particular antioxidant is actually effective and how much antioxidants a particular plant or berry or fruit or vegetable has. Elderberry has what they call a high ORAC value, which means it has a high antioxidant level. So elderberry clearly, scientifically, as well as we know for thousands of years, indigenous healers have noted that elderberry decreases sick time dramatically, and in the studies, again, by 4 days. And scientists believe that it's some type of interaction between these antioxidants, the flavonoids, and vitamin C. Just a note, just in case we have some botanists out there who actually want to pick some elderberry, just to know that the leaves and the stem are poisonous. And if you pick the elderberry and it's unripe, it will kill you. So you definitely need ripe elderberry and the flowers. One more thing is now, so I recommend people use elderberry. There's a great tea you can get right in the health store by a company called Traditional Medicine, and it's called Echinacea elder. So it's a combination of echinacea, and most people know about echinacea. It's been used for thousands of years. It stimulates the immune system. That's been verified. It increases white blood cells to attack the viruses. The only thing about echinacea, you want to use it in small amounts. I like this tea because it's a good blend of echinacea and elderberry. I use it whenever I'm out in the cold a lot. I ski, so on my ski days, I'm out in the cold. I always drink this tea when I come in to make sure that I don't end up with a cold or flu. If you catch a cold or flu at the very beginning, if you take this echinacea elder tea, or you can make your own, it will nip it in the bud completely. The other thing, now, of course, if you have chills with your cold, then add some ginger. Most people already know about that. If you have a cough, as I spoke of last week, to this tea, echinacea elder, then add some sage, and that will drop the cough. Now, to prevent a cold or flu, I recommend something old-fashioned that many of your grandmothers gave you, and that is cod liver oil. I take 2 tablets of cod liver oil every day, and at breakfast. And if you take that, I never get colds and flus. So I take cod liver oil every day. And one last trick. If you have a cold and your head is really, really stuffy, you can't breathe, always keep a hot water bottle. These are things you should have in your home. A hot water bottle, you put it over your navel area. Of course, you want a sheet or a T-shirt so it's not touching your skin. And just leave it on for 40 minutes. It will completely clear up your head, stop post-nasal drip, so you can breathe and go to sleep.
And that's why run that bad boy again.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
I was talking in Senke Lee's. I said, run that bad boy again. Run that by us again.
Oh, the hot water bottle?
Yeah, over the navel area.
Yeah. Over the navel area. Now, of course, you want a sheet or a T-shirt. The thing, 70% of your immune cells reside below your navel. So when you have a hot water bottle over your navel area, you activate your immune system, and it just clears up your entire head. So if you're stuffy going to bed, it's very difficult to breathe. At least, so you have to be a mouth breather at night if you have a stuffy head. I always just put a hot water bottle over my navel area, and your head will clear up in 10 to 15 minutes. It's the best thing to have in your home. This should be a part of your medicine kit. You should always have echinacea elderberry as a part of your medicine kit. For kids, you want to get the elderberry tincture, the Sambuco, which is made into a syrup. That is the one that was used in these clinical studies, the Sambuco syrup that was given to those 60 adults who cleared their flu in 2 days.
Now that Sambuco is my familiarity with it is as a Chinese going to Chinatown and getting they call it Sambuca. Sambuco, is that the same thing?
Yeah, I'm just using a commercial name. The one they used was from a company called Artemisia, and they called theirs Sambuco. So there are different names. They're all from the Sambuca nigra shrub. So
okay, so when I look at it, elderberry is the key thing, or echinacea on that?
Elderberry is key. Echinacea certainly supports it because echinacea is an immune booster, but I like it because it's in the right amounts. Echinacea should only be used when needed.
Okay.
Echinacea long-term can actually become problematic, but in the short burst, when you need an immune boost, echinacea is extremely useful, and when you couple it with elderberry, you have a very powerful tool to use to get you well.
But this Sambuca is a combination of what?
Well, Sambuco is just the black elderberry extract.
Okay.
They put a little bit of raw honey in it.
Right.
It's put down, and it's very powerful, and that's what they used in these studies that prove how effective it was for people who don't want to take the flu, or people who get the flu shot, or people who get the flu shot and get the flu.
Now, when you get a hold, when the flu gets a hold of a person, what do they do in the hospital? What does a naturopath do?
Okay, well, when my patients call me, and I can hear in their voice, they're down for the count. Well, most all of my patients, I give them a cold and flu sheet, so they know what should be in their medicine chest. They'll just call me to check up. But they all have their hot water bottles. They all have elderberry and echinacea. They all have ginger around. They have all the things that I want them to have. So when we're talking, if they have, a few other symptoms, I'll recommend they do, they always drink that tea. Sometimes I'll recommend they actually boil or simmer it with some garlic or some onions or a combo, depending if they have a lot of mucus, because garlic will dry up that mucus and support it, while elderberry keeps you moist so you don't get that hacking cough. So this little combinations people can do is they call me and say, I'm really chilled, I'm like, throw some ginger in with that elderberry. So there's little combinations, but if you have all of this in your home, you can get over the flu or a cold in 2 days. It's just no reason to be down for the count.
How do people connect with you?
I can be reached at 212-252-2802.
Repeat that, sis.
That's 212-252-2802.
Okay, we only have a few more minutes with Dr. Courtney Witherspoon, and she is based here in Harlem, USA. And when we get ready to go off, do not be calling, because I can't take calls when we're going in another direction. You had a question?
Yes, I had a question about the I've noticed what you've noticed about the hospitals making the flu almost mandatory for their staff and their employees. How legal is this from a medical standpoint, and what's the history with this?
Well, they try to make certain vaccines mandatory, and the nurses union actually fought that back. So what they've done now, particularly with the flu shot, it's not exactly mandatory, but if a nurse or a staff member doesn't take it, they have to wear a mask during the flu season. So that's why I'm really happy that there are now qualified, peer-reviewed scientific studies coming out in medical journals that indicate that there are alternatives. Now, this is supposed to be a democracy, so if someone tells me the flu shot has helped them from getting the flu, I'm like, go get that flu shot. But other people don't want to do it, or other people have gotten the flu after that vaccine. They're like, I'm not taking that again. Now that there's verifiable studies, and since medicine is supposed to be based on science, these are scientific studies showing that if you're taking quality elderberry formula or tincture or tea or the sambuco extract, called the syrup, that it kills those same viruses up to 99%, and people get better within 2 days. That's unheard of. So I suggest, I have a lot of nurses in my practice, and I suggest that they present this to their unions so they can go back and say, we should have a choice. We should not, have to wear a mask if we're taking the sambucos. We're going to be just as protected as someone with a flu shot. So, we'll see what happens with that.
Well, that's good, because, even outside nurses, I have information that even staff who do administrative work, a lot of hospitals now are charging them, sending out emails coming from top people, telling them they have to get this coming from HR, of course, which scares them because HR, human resources, directly tied to their employment. So thank you for sharing that information.
I should say, in all fairness, I have had some people tell me that they get a flu shot every year and they never get the flu. So obviously, for some people, it works. I'm just suggesting that there should be democracy, and since now we have scientific evidence that elderberry works as well, that people should have their options.
All right. Once again, how folks can contact you here in Harlem, USA?
They can contact me for appointments at 212-252-2802. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule so you can talk to our listeners, especially with this quote-unquote flu season.
We're going to take this last call. Caller, you're on the air. Caller? Let me see whether I do it right here. Hey, I blew it. I blew that. I got to do okay. I'm learning. I'm learning. I can't blame the machinery. I can't blame Sync.
There they go right there.
Let's see whether this is. God bless you on the air.
Thank you, Brother Leroy.
You got to go right to your question.
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask the doctor about a product that's on the market that's called Nature's Plus Source of Life Solid Gold Liquid. And the main ingredient or the active ingredient that I find is Aqui Resveratrol. I'd like to ask the doctor if she's familiar with that.
And the resveratrol is used. It does have major antioxidant activity. It's used in many things. So I don't know about that particular supplement.
No, wait a minute. Doc, go back over your answer.
I'm saying resveratrol is used and has major antioxidant activity. So it's used for a whole variety of different health problems and has been shown beyond any kind. I haven't really seen it for flus and colds. It's used for so many other types of health issues. But I have not seen it beneficial in flus and colds. It may be part of a complement of different nutrients in the cold and flu. As I said, it is a very strong antioxidant. It's used a lot in anti-aging compounds because it has an effect right on the DNA. It affects the DNA, it protects the DNA, and as you know, as your DNA gets affected by our environment, your cells, your chromosomes, are the ones that start dying off. As they get smaller and shrink, that's the end of those cells, and that's the process of aging. Resveratrol is very good to stop the aging since it's very protective of our DNA. But I really haven't seen it in cold and flu formula.
Okay. All right. We're straight with no chaser. One more time, give your contact number here in Harlem. Folks can call you if they didn't get through today.
Yes, it's 212-252-2802.
Repeat that.
212-252-2802. Lots of twos there.
Dr. Courtney Witherspoon, thank you, my dear, and God bless you. We look forward to having you again on the Communicators.
Well, thank you for everything you do. I mean, your voice in the community is incredibly important.
Thank you, my sister. Peace. And once again, talking about health, pay attention to this.
The Stanley Mirsky MD Educational Unit of the Mount Sinai Diabetes Center presents free diabetes education classes. Learn how to manage your diabetes and enjoy a better quality of life. Invite your friends and family to help you reach your goals. Prevent, control, thrive. Classes are Monday evenings at 6 p.m. and Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. All classes are held at the CAM building, located at 17 East 102nd Street, between Madison and 5th Avenue. Classes are free, but you must register. To register, call 212-241-3422, option number 4.
So even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
On Sunday, January 19th at 3 p.m., the world-famous Apollo Theater will host a Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration. Hosts Brian Lara and Farai Chadia will discuss the legacy of Dr. King's dream. Featured guest panelists will include Nelson George, Christina Greer, Reverend Peter Hetzel, Dr. Khalil Gibran Muhammad, Dr. Pamil Joseph, Dr. Pedro Noguera, Reverend Paul Brandeis Rauschenbusch, Reverend Donna Shaper, and Jan Willis. Also, performances by Vernon Reed, the Gospel for Teens Choir, and more. That's the Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration, Sunday, January 19th at 3 p.m. at the world-famous Apollo Theater. This event is free and open to the public, but you need tickets. To reserve your ticket, visit www.apollotheater.org.
I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream.
Okay, they say you need a ticket, and that's what they do in advance to make sure they have what they need to have to fill the auditorium, the facility there at the Apollo. I would say to you, if I were you listening to this show right now, and I want to go to that event, I would go over there anyway and say, I heard y'all being talked about on WHCR Harlem Community Radio, and they say there might be something in here for me. And I'd rather go over there and say that than not to venture out and miss a dynamic discussion, especially the brother from the Schomburg. Others on that panel are people who, anyway, you're laughing at me for, brother. I mean, you know.
I just said that's kind of like a diss. It's ambiguous. It can be taken either way, but you know.
That's a big word for me, man. But anyway, the big thing is this: is that we had the celebration of Brother Amiri Baraka's passing, and celebration of his life yesterday in New Jersey, and your impression, you come in conscious, but if an unconscious person came into that event, what would be the impression, what would be the impact on them?
Wow. I mean, the event was, basically 5 hours, so it all depends on where they came in at. There were so many different ways to take it, and we had the nation doing security. Everybody gonna feel safe. We got politicians, we have activists, we have poets. We had people coming to pay respect to Brother Baraka, who might not think you didn't know. That Newark and that New York connection is really stronger than most people realize it, and most people know. I mean, there was a lot of New Yorkers in the building.
If you wanted to get a visual view of that conscious circle of individuals in this area, in the metropolitan area, you got it yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, these are individuals who have a history in coming out of the 60s into the 70s, into the 80s, but most importantly, having lived through the 60s, that our grandchildren need to really question each and every one of us who lived through that period, because they don't see that today. There's a camouflage of what the challenge is, what the struggle is today. There's a camouflage. You go on TV, there's a reality show that says Kumbaya, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My impression, because I framed it in terms of a conscious and an unconscious. Unconscious person is somebody who heard that there would be a funeralization yesterday at Symphony Hall,
right,
in Newark. They come in and they see standing room only black folks, and they hear conscious deliveries. They hear the sister Jessica anymore. She's a poetess. I don't know whether you were there at that time. The sister, she just rocked the place. She said, "Bam!" I mean, they heard Sister Soldier. They heard Danny Glover. They saw and heard Woody King. They saw Saul Williams. They heard Craig Harris, jazz trombonist here in Harlem. And
Glenn Thurman surprised me.
Glenn Thurman, brother. God bless you on the Black Air.
Black Ted here. How are you, my brother?
I'm black as ever. We got 1 minute for you. You said you reduce your own time.
Yes, sir. Well, I want to say this. It was a great program, but Ras Baraka really put on. He did a eulogy, but this was a coming of age for him. I truly feel that not only did he express all that he had learned from his father, but he is ready to take the
mantle.
He's ready to take the helm of running the city of Newark.
What was it? What was the ingredients that makes you say that?
It was the poetry, the intellectualism. You can see he has studied. He understands from the bottom up and from the top down what needs to be done, not just for the city of Newark, but all over this country in terms of the needs of African Americans and all oppressed people.
Mm-hmm. And
he has come of age.
Ras Baraka is what relationship to Amiri?
He's the second son of Amiri Baraka.
Okay, because you're talking to a vast audience. Some people know and most people don't know, especially.
You're right. He's the second son of Amiri Baraka, and he's a city councilman of the South Central Ward, and running for mayor of New York.
Newark.
Of Newark. Yeah.
He's got a task to do with this bad boy over here.
Yeah.
And also a task in terms of Newark. Let's just do this before our next guest calls in. And this is the Communicators. I'm Brother Leroy, along with
Brother Senke.
And you're listening to
WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
Our guest online is Brother Ted Wilson. You heard a portion of his interview last week. We did a very brief on the significance of Amiri Baraka, the impact that he had on various relationships, and of course Ted Wilson is one of them. He's a childhood friend. We basically meet Amiri at the same time as Leroy Jones?
Yes, we did.
Right. Do you remember the circumstances under which we were introduced?
We had the forums at the Kappa House.
Okay, all right.
In 1964, which was the same year that I believe The Dutchman, his play, The Dutchman, was mounted at the Cherry Lane Theater. And you were the first of us to go see it. And I came and I went to see. You came back and said, you got to see this play. This is a bad play.
Mm. Okay. I just did a chop up. Man, I can't take... It's a classroom. When I say classroom, everybody is
learning.
Okay, everybody is open to call, but I have to be very conscious of letting you know when do not call in, because I have two calls. I got two lines in here, and I got calls coming in, and they'll be for guests. Caller called in, wanted to know if Leroy Jones did the toilet. Yes, he did, and that, in fact, Glenn Thurman talks about that.
Yeah, Glenn Thurman was good when he spoke about that, and he spoke about how, his awakening, how it linked with him being exposed to that sort of poetry and artwork by Brother Baraka, and how it forever changed him as an artist to hear that, and how he tried to hide it from his, I think it was his mother. He said he tried to hide it. This is powerful stuff, not just for artists, but powerful stuff for anybody, who is seeking consciousness in America, to hear this story and to hear how this sort of thing profoundly affected, what someone is going to turn into, how they're going to develop, what they're going to become later as an artist, no matter what way you express, what art form you're in, whether it's music, song, dance, poetry, critical, sort of powerful art, how profound it can be, and, how we develop. And I think that sort of thing, although it can be very simple, it touches everybody, no matter what you do for a living, no matter what you if you just like to take in entertainment, or if you are an entertainer. And I think that spoke, volumes. And not just for, everybody who knows Amiri Baraka knows he is part of the Black Arts Movement. And, they associate Amiri Baraka with artistry. But artistry, people should understand, shouldn't be separated from the struggle, this progressive activism that happens in our community, and those who partake in it, what their role is in, not only pushing the art form, but pushing the culture and pushing the struggle and what we seek to do today.
Well, Glenn kind of segued on something that Danny Glover said, that Amiri was a major fact of his becoming an actor. Out in San Francisco at that particular school out there, he had a role for Danny, and Danny had never been in any kind of play. And that was his introduction. Glenn Thurman comes on later on. He says, "Hey, Amiri was
Jesus."
Now, what I heard, yes, he gave him the role of Jesus in the toilet.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I heard in both of these brothers is that not only did Amiri write plays, and those plays at that particular time were hard-hitting, so anyone in the arts area coming into the arts would be hammered by the reality of the insights of Amiri. And they would, in order to learn those roles, in order to learn those lines, they would have to begin to think in a more conscious way. So his acting his plays, the individuals began to take on a new life as conscious individuals. And this is what I'm listening to as I heard the presentations. The sister that sang at the end, God Bless the Child.
I thought her last name was Vaughn.
Yes, it's in the program. It's in the first page 2, and being as
Vanessa Rubin.
Yeah, being as literate as I am, I'd never heard of sister, but that Vanessa Rubin, this sister is B.A.D. Absolutely on the money, get set, go. I hung up inadvertently on Ted because I'm trying to juggle some things, and he evidently isn't calling back. I had another guest scheduled. This is the way, sometimes people bail out on me, and they can't bail out on me, man, because this time that we have is not.
It's precious. It's precious. No, that's what it is. It's precious.
Don't bail out on me, man.
You can't get it back,
And they ain't gonna give us no more time. This Negro up in here. This Negro running you say, wait a minute, Negroes are throwing covers out the window. Their eyes are uncovered. There is a story out of Philadelphia, ladies and gentlemen, on this stop and search. It is not stop and frisk. There are some demons who get themselves on the police forces around the nation. The Ku Klux Klan used to operate as a hodgepodge of individuals, axe handles, hatchets, anything that they could cowardly pull together to kill black people. And those of us who don't know about that history, you need to read about it, because the Ku Klux Klan has taken on a different form today. They wear shirts and ties. They wear creased pants. They're in the Ivy League towers of corporate America, of academia, of politics. They have implemented programs to destroy black people, literally destroy black people. And it's done covertly under the guise of something else. Is soft kill, but still it's menticide, it's genocide. There's a story out of Philadelphia, a young boy, 16 years old, with his companions. They're going to play a basketball game, and the police roll up on them like they do here in New York City. In fact, Bloomberg said white people are being frisked too much. And they weren't even being frisked at all in their neighborhoods where they sell coke, marijuana, and anything else. And this young boy, ladies and gentlemen, 16 years old, they had a policewoman, the boy is handcuffed. They arrested him for nothing. The boy's going to a basketball game. He's got his uniform, basketball uniform, on under his street clothes, or, you know, the sweats and whatnot, because it's cold. And they stop and search the boy after he's handcuffed, and the woman pulls on his testicles and his genitals to the extent that the next day he has to go to the hospital, and the doctors at the hospital say, to the mother, you have got to bring charges against these people because he may not be able to father any children. This is a story right now. Here in St. Nicholas Projects, I have been in a meeting where the usual suspects, meaning guys who have records on them, meaning records being they've got some kind of infractions with the law. So they don't complain when there is something done against them by the law. They can be beat up. They just take it as a fact of life. But over in St. Nicholas Projects, they have said that there's this guy, or has been, a so-called police officer. They call him Red because he has reddish hair. And this guy, they say, is a pervert. So when he's searching the males, he's doing all kinds of feelies on them that dehumanizes them. But they don't complain. They'll come to a meeting and want you to speak up for them. But these are the kind of individuals, and their comrades on the police force know about this. That's where you have this blue, they call it the blue wall of silence when it comes to black people. The blue wall of silence. I was reading in the Daily News a few weeks ago where this guy who played on The Sopranos was freed up in the Bronx, Thug Neck. Okay. Usually when there's a black guy, let's go back to the 60s, when there's a black guy who's been accused of killing a police, there's this advanced information that comes out, and the police show up in mass. God bless you on the Black Ear.
Yes, my brother. Hey, y'all, yes, this Blue Wall Silence. Yes, this is not only Ku Klux Klan and Caucasians. This is also some blacks, young blacks that's getting into the force. I spoke with an officer the other day, and he said he don't even care nothing about Martin Luther King's birthday. Oh. Yes. He said he doesn't care anything about this, and just what you're saying. See, this is mentality have been passed down into the institutions that they even come through with, into their training. So we must be aware of this here. And I don't want to harp on it, but you're right on target. And this is a sickness that we really got to get grappled with. And we don't even know where the enemy's coming from. It's a phantom, and it can come through our own race, and it's a darn shame.
How did you come about to have a conversation with this individual?
Well, I was in Brooklyn. I'm coming through Brooklyn, and I do some boxing. I train, and I had some youth that was coming through, and they was speaking with some of these young people, these young brothers that was coming through the turnstile. And I said to the officer, I said, oh, this is Martin Luther King's birthday. It was, as a matter of fact, it was on the 17th. He said, no, his birthday's on the 20th. I said, no, his birthday's actually on the 15th. Right. And he said, well, look, I don't care anything about that. He hasn't done nothing for me. I don't care anything about his birthday. And I was like, officer, I'm an ex-Marine myself, and I know the indoctrination. However, once you come through a certain reality, you must also realize that, you're dealing with real people here. And these youth are not doing anything. They're making a little noise. Okay, some of them jump the turnstile.
You know, and I just happened to just wanted to, you know, chime in, you know, put my little 5 cents in, you know, to let them know, right now, come on, brother. Like this here, and the Chinese officer that was with him, he backed off. He didn't even have to, you know, he was more, you know, complying with it. But this officer, you know, he seemed to have, and you know, but so not to dwell on it too much, but just like you had mentioned, my brother. See, we're looking at for the Klan, and we're looking at this and that and the other. But my Lord.
Okay.
All right, my brother.
All right.
Carry on. I'm on the other side of the mountain. You know me.
Yes, sir. There's the Klan and the Klanettes. Hold on a second. God bless you on the Black Air.
Yes, sir, Brother Leroy. And, you know, I am totally uncovered. But the information that you're giving out is partial. His name is Redbeard. Hello?
I'm listening.
And he has made detective 3rd grade, all right? And he is rampant. I heard that he retired, but I don't know that for sure. He's been around for years, and he has trained several officers here in St. Nicholas Housing. So then it's not his behavior. It's the officers that he has trained under him. And Brother Smiley uncovered. Hello?
Now, we're listening, brother. I mean, what are we supposed to say?
So the information that I'm bringing forth is that he has also trained several of the community people, and they conform. So then you're not going to get at this as though it's information that you're passing on to the constituency. You have to get at this, as I stated on another program, at its root level. The police academy, or the officers that are coming out of the police academy, have to be retrained to conform to the attitude that we are tribal, you know, and these gatherings or these groupings that you see of young men together is tribal. It has nothing to do with bad behavior. And they place several hundred police officers in certain communities to control what? To control activity, movement. And that's what I feel Stop and Search is all about.
Okay, all right.
Stop and Frisk is all about.
Thank you, my brother.
Yes, sir.
And the guest that I had set up, he obviously, you know, I'm glad I didn't announce his name, otherwise, you know. But that teaches me, you know, that really teaches me. And
let me go back to something with you yesterday from the funeral when you were in it. Now, I personally had no problem with it, but Michael Eric Dyson did a powerful piece, which, in my opinion, embodied the spirit of Amiri Baraka, and he cursed in it. And one woman, some people in the section, you know, he cursed and he used the N-word. They were like, "Oh, he can't do that here," and this sort of thing. But I thought it was
they weren't ready, brother. Yeah, I don't know who that was speaking.
Yeah, that's Michael.
He
Eric
said
Dyson.
that at the very end.
It was coming sort of
at
to
the very end of his presentation.
Right, exactly. Right at the end of it.
But the two people that said something, they were not. They were a minority because the whole place lit up.
Yeah,
he said he dropped the thing, the boom.
Right.
It was quite an experience, brother. It was quite an experience. The first brother who presented was Kevin Maynard. I guess you call him opera singer. He sang "Old Man River," man. Man. Tears was coming out of my eyes, man. I said, wow. But I'm going to tell you, when you look at the material that they gave us on Amiri, it's as though he's not gone. The photos that they use, action photos on the front of the press kit and whatnot, and the program, and definitely in terms of the impact that he's made on the public. Last week we had the Last Poets, Brother Abiodun, and he talked about how they were inspired by Amiri. And others coming out of the event yesterday, they were telling me they didn't realize how deep Amiri was, and that he should be taught in the schools. And one of the things that came out from a presenter was his being a catalyst for Black Studies programs around the country, and the appreciation of Black literature throughout the schools where he has attended. And I
like the way they linked him with another Jersey brother, Dr. Leonard Jeffries.
They said he, Jeffries, and the politician who died, Donald Payne. They were all in the high school together.
Same high school, yeah.
You know, and it was very, 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 very interesting. It's one of those things that you would have to live through. People can write about it, and I would imagine the Newark Star Ledger has written stuff. But there were some people, I can't remember who made that presentation towards the end, talking about how the press would treat that gathering.
Yeah.
I can't remember who said that.
That caller may be trying to help us. Let me let them get it.
God bless you on the Black Air.
Yeah, God bless you, Brother Leroy and J.K. I thought that the Baraka program was beautiful, man. I mean, it really gave a great spirit. It was good to see Sister Soldier and some of the other luminaries. But my question would be this, in thinking about Baraka, what would he think of this absolute sham that's going on with Chris Christie? I would really like to get his take on something like this, because I don't care what nobody say. The man is absolutely responsible for this. And, you know, I think somebody as honest as Baraka would definitely point it out to the people, because it just seems like there's so many of us that are just not connecting the dots with this whole twisted scandal. And it's bigger than bullying.
All right. Okay, my brother.
It's funny that, you know, one of the speakers addressed that. They said that Christie did that because it was right after Baraka died, and he didn't want his spirit to get up out of Jersey and go influencing more people. So they shut the bridge down.
Our ability to signify is huge. And another brother said, or sister, I can't remember who, they said, Baraka is bad. He even took Sharon with him.
Oh yeah.
The Prime Minister of Israel. The man.
Oh gosh, what was that?
Anyway, you know, they dropped those little pieces, but what I thought about this
yesterday.
I thought about it was 5 hours.
I know, yeah.
I thought about this Washington Bridge Gate, what they call, and if you step back and look, you can get more information just by stepping back and observing and not being a part of it emotionally. And whether or not he is lying or whatnot, that stuff is so huge, it's got to come out. If he is honest, if he's not so honest. And stuff is beginning to come out. But I said, what significance does this have for black people, aside from those individuals who commute? And the answer came back to me is this. This is how they do the black community, but we don't have anyone on the other side saying, here's what happened to you. Here's why garbage isn't picked up.
Right.
Here's why drugs is in the community. Right. Here's why, and just a few years ago, I'm coming through El Barrio, Spanish Harlem, and there was a line from something like 2nd Avenue to 3rd Avenue. I said, what's going on here? It was a crack line. I didn't know. I'm serious, in broad daylight. It was a crack. I said, what are these people waiting on? I'm looking. I said, what is going on here? And I'm driving through all kinds of people, right?
In broad daylight now.
In broad daylight.
Okay.
I'm talking about when the crack was allowed in the black community. You know what they said about de Blasio, that he was the friends of the Sandinista. Well, the Sandinista was fighting the Contras. What did the Contras do? They worked together with Colonel North in bringing in crack cocaine into America. Now, nobody stood up and laid that out.
Gary Webb.
No, I'm saying today.
Right.
No one has stood up and reminded black people of that operation Colonel North was running out of where? The basement of the White House. So someone made that comparison and said, how could that be going on and Reagan didn't know? How could that be going on and Secretary of State didn't know? What was Colonel North doing in the basement of the White House? So what you're seeing in Christie is an unraveling, is a review. See, Are people outside of black people worthy to follow blindly? Or do you have your own mind? Do you believe that the New York Post, the Daily News, the Times, and Wall Street Journal are going to give you, CNN, MSNBC, is going to give you the information that you need to survive? Or will you still pass up black newspapers on the street, you paying $7 to $10 a week for the tabloids, and here black papers come out one time a week? You know, what's going on in the minds of our people? So when you say, hey man, we can talk about Christie and all that all day, but what are we doing? What are we doing to implement a resurrection among our people of knowledge? I was talking to a person the other day, and their child is in school upstate, and the way it's in a white area, and the way they described the situation is, you thought they were talking about PS 94, 194 and 144th Street between 7th and 8th. There are no textbooks. There are no book reviews. There's no homework. There's no nothing. This is in suburbia. They're dumbing down everybody. So when you push your nephew to learn to do some work, why should he do that when the teacher ain't asking for it? Right. This is in their minds. The teacher has the so-called authority. So it's a dumbing down. They'll dumb down even their own people in order to keep black people from realizing their true potential. Black people say, well, what's it got to do with us? It got a lot to do with us, ladies and gentlemen, because when you look at what black people know and can do, then what you want to do is implement a learning program within your own families, and we cannot afford to lose anyone. We cannot afford to lose our grandchildren. We cannot afford to lose our nieces and nephews. You have to be as involved with your nephew's life as your brother.
Yeah, I just want to do one last thing, Brother Leroy. If we look at Gil Noble and Mary Baraka, it seems that all the time the brothers are passing before the sisters pass. And of course women live longer than men. But what's your insight into this? And that's just two of the latest.
Okay.
I mean, we could go on.
You're saying the dynamic that we're seeing that? A quick one is the woman, the black woman is the first doctor. She's the first nurse. She is sensitive to her health. We are recipients of, hey man, you look great today, and not feeling that way, or seeing something wrong with a sore that doesn't heal, and we don't deal with it. The woman is the first doctor. That's why it's important for black women to eat right. Stop eating that pork that's going to give you high blood pressure and take you off the planet, and deprive your grandchildren and your grandnieces and your husband of your company, of your insight, of your ability to say, look, hon, let's go to the doctor. I ain't waiting for you to make up your mind. Let's go. Case closed. She is the first doctor. She's got to take care of herself, and she's got to get the knowledge that will enable her family to live and survive. That is the obligation of the black woman today. Stop looking at Wendy Williams and all these other jive time programs and getting false here and all this other kind of bull crap, and get yourself together mentally so that you can be the powerful black woman that God made you to be. And the black man got to stop and listen. He got to wake up, read, get knowledge. Get some black newspapers under your belt. God bless you all with a fantastic day. Sister Velva Bowles is on tomorrow morning at 9. Peace.
You're listening to WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem.
Divas Beauty Salon has moved. Divas Beauty Salon, a team of professional Dominican hairstylists with more than 10 years of experience in Harlem, has moved to the Bronx. Recently renovated for your convenience and better service, the salon offers a full range of services, including wash and sets, wash and blow dry, relaxers with deep conditioning, touch-ups, semi and permanent color, haircuts, and more. Divas Beauty Salon, located at 670 East 161st Street between Cotwell and Trinity Avenues in the Bronx. Open 7 days a week for your convenience, Monday through Saturday 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Sundays 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. For more information, call 718-292-0055. That's 718-292-0055. Remember, at Divas Beauty Salon, we value your time. We're not here to waste it.
WHCR